Ryan Mitchell had always believed that the worst part of being a detective was dealing with the horrors people were capable of inflicting on one another. But nothing, not the crime scenes, not the years spent tracking down criminals, not the sleepless nights spent chasing shadows, could have prepared him for the sight of his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, standing in their doorway in nothing but a diaper. Elena gasped, dropping the dish towel she had been holding. Ryan, frozen for just a second, felt his stomach twist into a tight knot before he rushed forward and scooped Lily into his arms. Her little body was trembling against his chest. She wouldn't even lift her head to look at him. "Lily," Elena whispered, gently touching their daughter's tear-streaked face. "Sweetheart, what happened?" Lily buried her face in Ryan's shoulder, refusing to speak. That alone sent warning bells blaring in his mind. His daughter was bright, curious, and always full of energy. But now, she was silent, broken, and ashamed. Ryan locked eyes with Elena, and he knew they were thinking the same thing. Something terrible had happened. He carried Lily to the couch and sat her down carefully. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now," he said, keeping his voice gentle despite the rage already simmering beneath the surface. "Can you tell us what happened?" Lily hiccuped, rubbing at her red-rimmed eyes. She hesitated, shifting uncomfortably, before finally whispering, "Mr. Harrington?" Ryan clenched his jaw. "Lily's teacher. What about him, baby?" Elena asked, her voice shaking. Lily looked down, twisting her little fingers together. He got mad. Said I wasn't trying hard enough in math." Her lips quivered, and a fresh wave of tears spilled over. I got nervous. I tried to hold it, but I couldn't." Ryan's fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Elena gasped, covering her mouth in horror. Lily sniffled. He made me stand up. Told everyone I was a baby. Said if I was going to act like one, I should look like one." Her tiny hands clutched the fabric of the shirt she was wearing. "He took my pants away. Made me sit like this in class." Ryan saw red. The morning had started with little warning signs. Subtle things that, in hindsight, Ryan wished he had paid more attention to. At breakfast, Lily had picked at her food, barely taking a few bites of her pancakes. She was usually the first to finish her plate, always eager to start her day. But that morning, she had been quiet, staring at her fork, absently swirling syrup around her plate. Ryan had noticed. "You okay, kiddo?" he asked, ruffling her soft brown curls. She nodded quickly, forcing a smile. "Yeah." Ryan wasn't convinced. He was trained to spot dishonesty, and there was something forced about the way Lily's eyes darted away. Elena had noticed it too. "Sweetheart, are you sure? You look a little tired." Lily hesitated. I just don't feel like going to school today." That made Ryan's eyebrows furrow. Lily loved school. Sure, she had struggled with math lately, but she always tried her best. For her to want to stay home was unusual. "You're not feeling sick, are you?" Elena asked, reaching over to touch Lily's forehead. Lily shook her head quickly. "No, I don't want to go." Ryan exchanged a glance with Elena. Something wasn't right. "Are the other kids being mean to you?" he asked. Lily's reaction was immediate. She stiffened, her little fingers gripping the edge of the table. "No," she said quickly. "It's not them." That made Ryan's stomach twist. "If someone is giving you trouble, you can tell us, sweetheart," Elena said gently. Lily shook her head again, more forcefully this time. "It's nothing, I promise." Ryan knew she wasn't telling the whole truth, but he also knew that pressing too hard might only make her retreat further. So, reluctantly, he let it go. For now, as they were getting ready for school, Lily hesitated in the hallway, staring at the neatly folded clothes Elena had set out for her. Her lower lip trembled. "Do I have to wear the diaper today?" Elena turned to her daughter with a patient smile. "Sweetheart, you know it's just for now," she said softly, "until your doctor says you're all better." Lily's medical condition caused occasional bladder control issues, something that she was self-conscious about. They had been working with her doctor on it, and most of the time, she was fine. But sometimes, stress made it worse. Lily fidgeted, her eyes darting toward Ryan. "But I don't want to wear it," she whispered. Ryan crouched down so they were eye level. Lily, it's just in case, okay? No one will even know you have it on. But her voice was barely a whisper. What if someone does? Ryan hesitated, his detective instinct screaming that something was deeply wrong. But before he could press further, Elena spoke up. No one is going to see it, sweetheart, she assured. And if you ever feel uncomfortable, you just tell your teacher, and they'll let you go to the bathroom, okay? Lily's expression darkened slightly, but she nodded, reluctantly taking her clothes and going to change. Ryan turned to Elena, his voice low. Something's bothering her. Elena sighed. I know, but she's not ready to talk about it. Ryan exhaled slowly, his jaw tight. He hated not knowing. He hated that he couldn't fix whatever was troubling his little girl. I'll take her to school, he said. See if I can get a read on things. Elena nodded, though the worry in her eyes matched his own. Neither of them knew that by the time Lily returned home, their worst nightmare would have already happened. Ryan Mitchell gripped the steering wheel a little tighter than usual as he drove Lily to school. The feeling in his gut wasn't just parental worry. It was the instinct of a seasoned detective sensing that something wasn't right. He glanced at his daughter through the rearview mirror. She sat in the back seat, quiet, her little fingers tapping nervously against her lunchbox. She had barely said a word since they left the house. Want me to put on your favorite song? Ryan asked, keeping his voice light. Lily shook her head. That was another red flag. She always begged him to play music in the car. Ryan hesitated before speaking again. Lily, is there something you want to tell me? She flinched. It was barely noticeable, but he caught it. She kept her gaze fixed on the window. No, she murmured. Ryan's grip on the wheel tightened. He didn't want to push her, but something was gnawing at him. When they pulled up to Lincoln Elementary School, Lily hesitated before unbuckling her seatbelt. She stared at the school entrance as if it were a monster waiting to swallow her whole. Ryan turned to face her. Kiddo, you can tell me anything. You know that, right? She nodded but still wouldn't meet his eyes. The front doors swung open, and a tall man with neatly combed hair and an easy smile stepped out. Mr. Harrington. Good morning, Lily. Ready for another great day? The teacher's voice was smooth, almost too friendly. Ryan immediately studied the man, his detective instincts kicking in. There was something calculated about his smile, something off about his entire demeanor. Ryan forced a polite nod. Morning, Mr. Harrington. Everything going okay in class? Mr. Harrington's smile didn't falter. Of course. Lily is just struggling a little in math, but she's doing her best. He patted Lily on the head as if she were a pet. We'll make a math was out of her yet. Lily flinched at the touch. Ryan caught it. His stomach churned. He didn't have any solid evidence, but years on the force had taught him to trust his instincts. And right now, every fiber of his being told him that something wasn't right. Still, he had a job to do. He had an undercover operation waiting. He took a deep breath and forced himself to stay calm. All right, kiddo, he said, kissing Lily's forehead. Have a good day. I'll pick you up later. Lily's voice was barely a whisper. Okay. As she walked toward the entrance, Ryan stayed parked for a few seconds longer than necessary, watching. Watching the way Mr. Harrington's expression shifted ever so slightly when he thought no one was looking. Watching the way Lily hesitated before stepping inside, like a prisoner walking into a cell. His gut told him to turn the car around and take her back home, but he didn't. And it was a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. Ryan spent most of the morning in a state of unease. He should have been focused on his job. His team had spent months setting up a sting operation on a major drug network that had been smuggling narcotics through the city. But instead, his mind kept replaying the way Lily had shrunk into herself when she saw Mr. Harrington. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had missed something. At the precinct, his partner, Jake Reynolds, clapped him on the shoulder. Hey, you good, man? You look like you swallowed a bad cup of coffee. Ryan forced a tight smile. Yeah, just something's off with Lily. Jake raised an eyebrow. Off how? Ryan hesitated. He trusted Jake, but without proof, he didn't want to sound paranoid. I don't know. She didn't want to go to school today. And her teacher, Harrington, I don't like him. Jake frowned. You think he's mistreating her? I don't know, Ryan admitted. running a hand down his face. But my gut is telling me something's wrong. Jake nodded. Your gut's usually right. You want me to do some digging? Ryan exhaled. Yeah. See if anything pops up on him. He didn't know if he was being overprotective or if he was onto something real. But by the end of the day, he would have his answer. And it would be worse than anything he could have imagined. Lily sat stiffly at her desk, staring at the numbers on the worksheet in front of her. The numbers blurred together as her heart pounded in her chest. She knew Mr. Harrington was watching her. He always was. The other kids had already finished their work, but she was struggling. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't focus. She was too nervous. She didn't want to make a mistake, but she did. Her pencil slipped, and she accidentally marked the wrong answer. She barely had time to erase it before she heard his voice. Lily, Mr. Harrington said loudly, stand up. Her stomach twisted. She hesitated. Now, he snapped. Slowly, she pushed back her chair and stood, her little knees shaking. Mr. Harrington walked over, towering above her. Do you know why I called on you? She shook her head. His smile was cruel. Because you're not trying hard enough. He picked up her worksheet and held it up for the entire class to see. Look at this, everyone. Another wrong answer. It seems Lily likes wasting our time. A few kids giggled. Lily's face burned. Mr. Harrington's smile widened. Maybe if you spent less time acting like a baby, you wouldn't be such a failure. The words hit her like a punch to the chest. And then it happened. The fear, the humiliation. It was too much. She tried to hold it in, but her body betrayed her. A wet warmth spread down her legs. The classroom went silent for a moment. Then the laughter started. Tears welled in Lily's eyes as she looked down in horror. Mr. Harrington sneered. Unbelievable. If you're going to act like a baby, then let's make sure you look like one. Before she could react, he marched over, grabbed her by the arm, and pulled her toward the back of the classroom. He rummaged through her backpack, found the spare diaper her mother had packed just in case, and held it up. Take your pants off, he ordered. Lily shook her head, sobbing. Please, please don't. Take them off, or I'll do it for you. She had no choice. With trembling hands, she pulled down her soaked pants. The laughter grew louder. Mr. Harrington smirked. Much better. Now, go sit down, baby. Lily could barely breathe as she stumbled back to her seat, wearing only her diaper, her face burning with shame. Tears ran down her cheeks as she stared at her desk, willing herself to disappear. But there was no escape. This was the worst day of her life, and it was far from over. Ava Mitchell was finishing up some work emails when she heard the soft knock on the front door. It was too early for Lily to be home. Frowning, she wiped her hands on a kitchen towel and walked to the door. Nothing could have prepared her for what she saw. Lily stood there, her little hands clutching the hem of her shirt, her face streaked with dried tears. But what truly sent Ava's heart into a tailspin was what she was wearing. Nothing but a diaper and her school shirt. Ava's breath caught in her throat. Honey, she whispered, falling to her knees and pulling Lily into her arms. The little girl collapsed against her mother, body trembling, sobs finally escaping as Ava cradled her close. What happened? Ava demanded, stroking her daughter's hair. Where are your pants? Who did this to you? Lily just shook her head, unable to speak through her hiccuping cries. The school bus engine rumbled as it pulled away from the curb, the driver throwing a sympathetic glance in their direction but saying nothing. Ava's mind raced. Had someone bullied her? Had she had an accident? But why would she be sent home like this? Humiliated, exposed, and terrified. Taking a steadying breath, Ava gently pulled back to look at her daughter's tear-streaked face. Lily, sweetheart, I need you to tell me what happened. Lily hiccuped. And Mr. Harrington, he made me. Her tiny voice wavered, and fresh tears welled in her eyes. Ava's blood ran cold. What did he do? She asked, her voice sharp with barely contained fury. Lily sniffled, swiping at her tears. He made me take off my pants in front of everyone. He said I was a baby. He made them laugh at me. Ava's entire body stiffened. The words hit her like a freight train, knocking the air from her lungs. For a moment, All she could hear was the pounding of her own heartbeat, her vision blurring with rage. Then she stood up, scooping Lily into her arms. "Come on, baby," she said, voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "Let's get you cleaned up." But even as she carried Lily inside, her mind was already racing ahead. Ryan needed to know, and Mr. Harrington was going to pay. Ryan was in the middle of reviewing the latest intel on his undercover drug investigation when his phone buzzed. "Ava, come home. Now." Something about those two words sent a chill down his spine. He immediately dialed her number. She picked up on the first ring. "Ava, what's wrong?" Her voice shook with restrained fury. "Lily came home in just her diaper." Ryan froze. "What?" Mr. Harrington humiliated her in front of the entire class, forced her to strip down, called her a baby. Ryan was already standing, his chair screeching against the floor, his entire body locked up, a deep, primal rage taking hold of him. "I'm on my way." He didn't even hang up properly before storming out of the precinct. Jake, his partner, caught the look in his eye. "Ryan? What's going on?" Ryan didn't stop walking. "That teacher, Harrington, he hurt Lily." Jake swore under his breath. "You need backup?" Ryan clenched his jaw. "No, I'm not handling this as a cop. I'm handling it as her father." He was out the door before anyone could stop him. By the time he reached home, his hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles had turned white. The moment he stepped inside, he spotted Lily curled up on the couch, wrapped in a warm blanket, her little face still tear-streaked. Ava was kneeling beside her, whispering reassurances. When she saw Ryan, she stood up immediately, her eyes blazing. "I want him fired," she seethed. "I want him in handcuffs." Ryan's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "Oh, he's going to pay," he said, voice deadly calm. Then, without another word, he turned and stormed out the door. His next stop? Lincoln Elementary. And Mr. Harrington was about to meet the full force of a father's wrath. Ryan pushed open the front doors of Lincoln Elementary so hard they slammed against the walls, causing several staff members to jump. His entire body was humming with barely restrained fury, but he forced himself to remain in control. He wasn't just here as a father. He was here as a man who knew how to dismantle people like Mr. Harrington. The receptionist immediately stiffened when she saw him. "Mr. Mitchell, can I help you?" "I need to see Principal Holloway," Ryan said, his voice ice-cold. The woman hesitated. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," he cut in, "but I suggest you call her. Now." The steel in his voice must have worked because within minutes, he was standing in Principal Holloway's office, hands clenched into fists at his sides. Seated across from him was Mr. Harrington, looking calm, too calm, like he was untouchable. The principal, a woman in her late 50s, folded her hands on her desk. "Mr. Mitchell, I understand you're upset, but—" "Upset?" Ryan repeated, his voice dangerously low. "Upset doesn't even begin to cover it. My daughter was humiliated. By that man sitting right there." Mr. Harrington scoffed, leaning back in his chair. "Oh, please. The girl had an accident in class. I followed protocol." "Protocol?" Ryan growled, stepping closer. "Protocol doesn't involve forcing a little girl to strip in front of her classmates, or calling her a baby." Mr. Harrington's expression flickered just slightly before he covered it with a smirk. "I was teaching her a lesson. Kids today are too soft." Ryan's fists clenched so hard his nails dug into his palms. But before he could speak, a small voice interrupted. That's not all he did. Everyone turned. A boy, one of Lily's classmates, stood in the doorway, shifting nervously. Principal Holloway frowned. "Jason, you should be in class." Jason hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Mr. Harrington gives some of us special candy." Ryan's blood ran cold. "What do you mean, special candy?" Jason gulped. "Lollipops. But after we eat them, we feel weird. Like sleepy and dizzy." Silence filled the room. Ryan turned back to Mr. Harrington, who had gone pale. "Tell me," Ryan said slowly, dangerously, "what exactly are you giving these kids?" Mr. Harrington's mask cracked. He shifted in his seat. "This is ridiculous." Ryan pulled out his phone. Yeah? Let's find out. He dialed a number. Jake, I need you and the team at Lincoln Elementary. Now. Mr. Harrington's face drained of all color, and Ryan smiled, because this wasn't just about Lily anymore. This was about something much, much bigger. And Mr. Harrington was going down. The tension in the principal's office was suffocating. Principal Holloway, usually composed, looked pale as she processed Jason's words. Mr. Harrington, who had been smug just moments ago, now shifted uncomfortably in his seat. But Ryan? Ryan was laser-focused, his years of experience as a detective telling him there was far more to this than just humiliation and cruelty. Jason, Ryan said carefully, kneeling to the boy's level. When did Mr. Harrington start giving out these lollipops? Jason hesitated, glancing at the principal nervously. It's okay, Principal Holloway reassured him. Tell the truth, Jason. The boy took a deep breath. Since last month. At first, he only gave them to the kids who got good grades. But then, he started picking certain kids. He said if we told anyone, we'd be in big trouble. Ryan's jaw clenched. And after you ate them, you felt? Jason nodded. Dizzy. Like I couldn't keep my eyes open. That was all Ryan needed to hear. He pulled out his phone and stepped aside, speaking in a low, urgent tone. Jake, this isn't just a misconduct case. We've got possible drug distribution inside an elementary school. We need to run toxicology on those lollipops. Jake swore on the other end. We're en route. ETA 5 minutes. Ryan hung up and turned back to Jason. You did the right thing, kid. Jason nodded, but his hands trembled slightly as he backed toward the door. Now, all eyes turned to Mr. Harrington. You should leave, he spat at Ryan. This isn't your investigation. Ryan let out a dark chuckle. It is now. Then, the sound of sirens filled the air, and Mr. Harrington's face drained of all color. Lincoln Elementary descended into chaos. Parents peered into the school, concerned by the sight of uniformed officers streaming through the hallways. Teachers whispered among themselves as detectives gathered evidence. Ryan stood just outside Principal Holloway's office, arms crossed, watching as his team searched Mr. Harrington's desk. Then, one of the officers lifted a clear plastic bag. Inside? Lollipops. Ryan's stomach twisted. Bag it for testing. Mr. Harrington, who had been silent up until this moment, suddenly jumped to his feet. This is ridiculous. You have no proof I did anything wrong? Jake, having just arrived, arched a brow. Oh, we will. He turned to Ryan. We found more in his car. Mr. Harrington's mask cracked completely. You can't prove those are mine. Ryan tilted his head. You're panicking. That tells me everything I need to know. He gestured to his officers. Cuff him. The room fell silent as the officers stepped forward. Mr. Harrington jerked back. No, you have no right. You're under arrest for child endangerment, abuse of power, and suspected drug distribution, Jake interrupted, pulling out his handcuffs. The teacher thrashed, but 2 officers forced him against the desk and cuffed his hands behind his back. This is a mistake. Mr. Harrington bellowed. I'm a respected educator. I was just disciplining that brat. Ryan saw red. He took 2 slow steps forward, his voice deadly quiet. You humiliated my daughter. You tormented children. And now? You're going to rot for it. Mr. Harrington sneered. She deserved it. Ryan moved so fast that Jake had to step between them. He's not worth it, man. Ryan inhaled sharply, then exhaled, forcing himself to step back. Mr. Harrington was dragged out of the school, screaming. And Ryan? He turned to Principal Holloway, who still looked stunned. You let a monster teach here, he said coldly. She swallowed hard. I didn't know. Ryan's gaze hardened. That's the problem. The night air was cool when Ryan finally walked through the front door of his home. Lily was curled up on the couch, her head resting in Ava's lap. She looked exhausted, but when she saw her father, her eyes lit up. Daddy? Ryan knelt beside her, brushing a gentle hand over her hair. Hey, baby girl. Ava looked up at him, silent but questioning. It's over, he said. Harrington's in custody. Ava's shoulders sagged in relief, and Lily blinked up at him. Is he gone? Ryan nodded. He'll never hurt you again. Lily hesitated, then whispered, I was scared. Ryan's heart clenched. He took her small hands in his. I know, sweetheart. And I'm so sorry you had to go through that. But listen to me. Nothing like this will ever happen to you again. I promise. Lily's lip trembled, but then she gave a small nod. Ryan pressed a soft kiss to her forehead before looking up at Ava. And the school? She asked. Ryan exhaled. There's going to be a full investigation. If there are others involved, we'll find them. Ava gave a small nod. Ryan looked back at Lily, determination filling his chest. You're strong, baby girl, and you are never alone. Do you hear me? Lily nodded again. Then, for the first time in hours, she smiled. And in that moment, Ryan knew his daughter would be okay, because she had a father who would always fight for her. The days that followed were a whirlwind of change. News of Mr. Harrington's arrest spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves through the school district. Parents demanded answers, teachers questioned how such cruelty had gone unnoticed, and the administration scrambled to rebuild the trust they had so carelessly broken. A full-scale investigation uncovered that Harrington had been involved in illegal activities for months, using his authority to manipulate and harm children. The lollipops were confirmed to contain sedatives, proving his deeper involvement in a drug operation that extended far beyond the school. Additional arrests followed, bringing an end to a network that had exploited the most vulnerable. For Ryan, this wasn't just a victory, it was a reminder of why he did what he did. He had spent years fighting crime in the streets, never imagining that the biggest battle he'd face would be inside his own daughter's classroom. Lily took time to heal, but with each passing day, she grew stronger. Therapy helped her process the humiliation she endured, and with her parents' unwavering support, she slowly regained her confidence. The once timid little girl who had been too afraid to speak up was now learning to stand tall, knowing she had a father who would always fight for her. As for Ryan, he knew this wasn't just about his daughter. It was about making sure no other child suffered the way she had. With the help of Ava and other parents, he pushed for stricter regulations in schools, ensuring that teachers were properly vetted and that children had safe spaces to report mistreatment. One evening, as he tucked Lily into bed, she reached out and held his hand. "Daddy," she whispered. "Yeah, sweetheart? I'm not scared anymore." Ryan smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "You're the bravest girl I know." Lily beamed, her eyes shining with newfound confidence. "I love you." Ryan kissed her forehead, holding her close. "I love you too, baby girl. Always." As he stepped out of her room and into the quiet of the night, he knew that while the scars of this ordeal would never fully fade, they had emerged stronger. Justice had been served, lessons had been learned, and most importantly, Lily was safe. And that was all that mattered. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the entire story and for watching the video. Your support means the world to us, and we hope you found it as impactful as we intended. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a like and share it with others who might appreciate it too. Also, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content. We have so much more to share. Your feedback and engagement help us improve and keep creating stories that matter. Once again, thank you for being part of this journey with us. See you in the next video.